Hello again, cardboard enthusiasts. In this video, I'll be talking about this game called Clank Catacombs. Clank, for those of you who don't know, is a pretty popular board game series known for their unique combination of deck building, dungeon crawling, and push or luck. So far, there are 4 games in this series and Catacombs is the latest one out of the 4. I'll first go through Catacombs and tell you my opinions about it, and since I actually have all 4 games, and no, I don't have a problem at all, I'll do a comparison of all 4 games at the end and tell you which ones to get if at all. So without further ado, let's get right into it. Clank Catacombs, which I'll refer to as just Catacombs from now on, is a 2 to 4 player board game where you venture into the, well, catacombs to try and get some riches while also not dying. To win the game, you will need to accumulate the most points denoted by these green circles throughout the game. There are a lot of things that give you points, but the most important one will be one of these 7 artifacts. Why? Well, if you don't have an artifact when the game ends, you won't be able to score at all. The initial setup of the game will look a little something like this, with the card market area set up on the side, as well as this tracker board placed somewhere on the table. And most importantly, this starting tile in the middle. Everyone will be given cubes and meeples of matching color, and you'll have to place your meeple on the entrance of the catacombs right here. If you have played other Clank games before, you might find this setup rather peculiar, as the dungeon itself is basically missing. Well, that is the main feature of this game, where you will reveal and build the dungeon as you play. See, you will move through these rooms in the catacombs and eventually you come into a pathway leading to nothing. If you then decide to continue moving into it, you then get to reveal a random tile like so, which must be connected to your current tile. You can also rotate it around to your liking, but you must place it so that the sides are fully touching. So no half and half business like this. The first 4 tiles that you reveal will be purple, which indicates that they are the safe zone tiles. The rest of the tiles will be dark blue instead, indicating the danger zone or depths. We'll come back and talk about these zones a bit later. As you reveal these tiles, you'll eventually come across the also important artifacts. As you can tell right here, all 7 artifacts are worth different amounts of points. So when a room demands an artifact like this one, you always place the crappiest available one first on it. Some rooms though would ask you for something a bit better, denoted by these plus signs. 1 plus sign means you skip the first available artifact and get the next one instead, while 2 plus signs means you skip the first 2 available ones and get the one right after. To obtain the artifact, you'll simply just have to move into the room. Before we get too carried away with the dungeon crawling aspect, I'm sure by now you're wondering how we can move through the dungeon in the first place. Well, that's where the deck building part comes in. See, at the start of the game, everyone will be given the same 10 cards, which you will then shuffle together to form your starting deck of 10 cards. Just like a lot of deck building games, you always start your turn with 5 cards drawn from your deck. As the cards that you drew will determine what you can do on your turn, the first thing you wanna do is to tally the 3 main resources that you can get from these cards, which are the boots, skills, and swords. If the cards grant you any of these resources, they will always be listed on the left side like so. This scramble card, for example, gives you 1 skill, 1 boot, and no swords, while this mercenary card will only give you 1 skill, 2 swords, and no boots. Going back to the 5 cards that we drew, the basic resources that we get this turn are 2 boots and 3 skills. This stumble card has no basic resources, and unfortunately also gave us plus 1 clank. For each clank that you generate, you must put one of your cubes on the tracking board. I'll explain this mechanism a bit later in the video. For now, just know that this is a bad thing, as you are thematically making a noise inside the catacombs. Anyway, it's time to use the resources that we got. Boots, as you may have guessed, allows you to move between rooms in the catacombs. Since we have 2 boots this round, we can then move 2 rooms away instead like so. Skill, on the other hand, can be used to buy new cards from the card market. The card market is made up of a reserve row and a dungeon row. The reserve row always offers you the same cards, while the dungeon row is basically random. Each card's price is listed on the bottom right corner of the card, and you must pay the cost in skill to obtain the card. The market cards are just plainly better than your starting cards, as they can give you a combination of 1, better resources, 2, unique effects down here, or 3, endgame points. As we only have 3 skills this round, let's buy this explore card that costs exactly 3. Any cards that you buy during your turn will then be put into your discard pile. Now, if you're not familiar with deck building, putting the card that you just bought in the discard pile might seem a bit weird. See, you'll eventually run out of cards to draw from your deck. When this happens, you'll have to reshuffle your discard pile, which then becomes your new recycled deck that you can continue drawing cards from. And that is how the cards that you bought gets incorporated into your deck. There are also some cards that will never go into your deck, like the devices and monsters. You get device cards using your skill just like normal cards, but you resolve its one-time effect immediately and the card gets scrapped. Monsters will also give you immediate benefits, but you have to defeat them with your swords instead. And yeah, that's mostly it for the deck building part. Because we've just spent all of our resources for the turn, we won't be able to do anything else but to end our turn. Ending your turn will reset the 3 resources back to 0 even if you have leftovers. All the cards that you drew, used or unused, will also be discarded, and you draw 5 cards again from your deck for the next round. Any cards taken from the dungeon row will then be replenished. Some of the cards may have this arrive effect, which will be activated when they enter the dungeon row. But more importantly, some of them might even have this dragon symbol. If the new card does have this dragon symbol, the game is immediately interrupted by a dragon attack. Remember those cubes that you place here whenever you get a clank? Well, when a dragon attack occurs, all those cubes will be put into the dragon bag. Then you'll draw a number of cubes equal to how angry the dragon is on the rage track. So if the dragon's here right now, we'll only have to pull 2 cubes from the bag. The bag is loaded with 24 black cubes during setup, so you're more likely to pull black cubes at the start. Let's say we pulled these 2 cubes for the dragon attack. The black cube is good because it does nothing. The yellow one, on the other hand, must be put on the matching health tracker, as it represents 1 damage done to the yellow player. Everyone starts with 10 health, and you'll be immediately out of the game when you accumulate 10 damage. And this is where the push your luck part comes in. See, after grabbing an artifact, you essentially have 2 choices. The first choice is to run back to the starting point, as you get an extra 20 points for getting out alive. But when you do that, you are effectively out of the game, meaning you cannot get any more points. Instead, during your turn, you are only going to be pulling 4 cubes from the bag, making everyone else basically die a bit faster. The other choice will be to press on for more points and explore the catacombs further. This is of course the riskier choice, as your chance of dying increases the longer you stay. See, the dragon gets angrier whenever an artifact is taken, which makes you permanently pull more cubes from the bag. Also, as the game progresses, more black cubes will be pulled out of the bag, while more of your cubes will be in it due to the clanks that you make. And remember those safe and danger zones? Well, if you die in the blue danger zone, your points are forfeit. Yes, you do not score points at all, which really sucks. Dying in the purple safe zone though is still okay, but you just don't get the extra 20 points. Now that you know the deck building and push your luck part of the game, let's finally go back to the dungeon crawling stuff. As you move throughout the dungeon, you'll eventually come across more difficult pathways. The double footsteps simply requires 2 boots instead of 1. The monster icon requires you to take a damage when going through it, though you can negate the damage by spending a sword for each monster. And finally, you might see a path blocked by a lock, which can only be accessed using one of these lockpicks. Unlocking a path will permanently remove the lock from the game, so anyone can now freely move through that path. Each player will start the game with 3 lockpicks, and you can get more of them throughout the game. While the pathways give you mostly restrictions, some of the rooms can actually give you some beneficial stuff such as healing and gold coins. Gold coins are points at the end of the game, so they are worth collecting. There are also occasional rooms with a question mark on it, which gives you one of these face down minor secrets. The minor secrets can be a lot of things, like various one-use potions that you can keep and use later, or simply just extra resources and sometimes extra points. And you might also get this rather unique secret called the puzzle box. It does nothing when you get it until you bring it to a certain place, which I'll explain in a bit. Moving on, you might also encounter rooms with extensions, which locks away something valuable. There are 3 types of extensions, and you'll again need a lockpick to access these rooms and get the rewards. The 3 extensions gives you each different rewards. The secret tome card does grant you some nice points, but it is a bit of a dud in your deck as it does nothing at all. The major secrets, on the other hand, are basically a better version of the minor secrets. This particular one is exclusive to Catacombs, and it allows you to always move both ways on a one-way tunnel. Then we have another Catacombs exclusive, which are these prisoners. Freeing a prison gives you 2 random prisoners, which can be various things but are mostly endgame points. This prisoner in particular is haunted and will add a white cube into the bag. The same thing could also happen when you reveal a haunted area like this one. The white cubes are pretty nasty as it deals 1 damage to everyone when drawn. And to make it worse, it goes back into the bag right after. The dungeon also comes with these unique rooms that are recurring to the Clank series. The Crystal Cave still does take away all of your remaining boots when you enter it, thus inhibiting your movement. The Market Room lets you buy any one of these items for 7 gold each, and they all do different things. Then there's this Catacombs exclusive room called the Way Shrine, which gives you gold equal to the number of unique Way Shrines you have entered. And if you have that minor secret that I mentioned, you can exchange it for a major secret in a Way Shrine. Lastly, you have these portals, which lets you travel to any other portal that is already revealed. It's not really a room, but it does let you jump around the map faster. So yeah, you keep taking turns until all players are out of the game, either by dying or successfully escaping. If you die inside one of the save zones while carrying an artifact, you'll still be eligible for scoring. Otherwise, if you die in the danger zone or do not carry an artifact, you'll then be banished into the Shadow Realm. The players who are eligible for scoring will then tally up their points, and the player with the most total points is the winner of the game. And that's basically all the rules to this game. So, how good is Clank Catacombs? Well, out of the 3 main mechanics of the game, the dungeon crawling bit is easily the best feature. Constantly revealing new tiles to expand the map is really fun, and you do actually feel like you are exploring a dungeon. More importantly, the exploration mechanic is actually quite controlled, as you won't ever get massive benefits or drawbacks when revealing new random areas. For example, if you have just revealed this crappy area and don't want to actually stop in the crystal cave, say because you have a lot of boots, you can then just rotate the tile this way, allowing you to reveal a new tile right away. Or say that you revealed a good area with an artifact instead. Chances are they will place a few hindrances to make it harder for you to grab the artifact right away. Also, since the crappiest artifacts are always placed first, you are very unlikely to get situations where someone just gets the best artifact out of nowhere due to lucky draws. While the dungeon crawling bit is spot on, the other two mechanics, well, not so much. The push your luck bit is okay, I guess. The threat of dying keeps you on your toes all game, but it does suck if you get 0 points through some unlucky draws, which does happen. And then you have the deck building mechanic, which easily is the worst one out of the three due to how uninspired and swingy it can be. The game follows the Ascension style market, where random cards are drawn from the deck to form a card market. While the cards themselves vary in usefulness and utility, most of the time you won't even get a chance to access these cool mechanics because the cards themselves are not available in the market. For example, some of the cards let you heal yourself, which is very useful even with the required condition because you would usually have to stop in crystal caves or buy a market item to achieve the same effect. Problem is, there's only 4 of these cards in the 100 card deck market, well 8 if you count the one-use cards, so you would have to be lucky to see these cards available on your turn. While the dungeon crawling bit does compensate for this, some other mechanics are card exclusive, such as minus clanks or allowing you to ignore the crystal cave movement reductions. This one in particular is also suspiciously a bit too useful, as it essentially has no drawbacks and there's only one card with this effect. This is the swinginess that I mentioned, as you are basically getting a powerful and unique effect just because you're lucky enough to generate 6 skills and have the card appear on the market that turn. But perhaps the worst example of swinginess lies in the trashing mechanic of the game. When you trash a card, you are completely removing it from your deck. You'll never draw or see it ever again because it doesn't go into your discard pile when you trash them. Now, there is basically only one prime candidate for this trashing mechanic, which would be the stumble card. The stumble card is a triple whammy. It is the worst card that you'll have in game. 1, it has no resources, 2, it generates clank, and 3, it fills up a spot in your deck. So if you manage to trash the stumble cards early, you will get a massive advantage. As you generate less clanks, you will put less cubes of your color into the bag. Couple this with some healing or minus clank cards, and it's possible that the bag won't ever have enough cubes of your color to kill you. And that's one stumble trash. If you manage to trash both of them instead, you don't even generate clanks anymore, which is really broken. The easiest way to get a trashing action is by lucky drawing the minor secrets. Out of the 20 minor secrets available, 2 of them gives you a trashing action. That's a pretty decent chance of basically getting an early game jackpot. Oh, and look, much to our convenience, all the starting tiles have at least one minor secret space, meaning that it is very probable for you to get a trashing action 3 to 4 rounds into the game. Goes without saying that it's extremely unfun to see your opponents get a massive advantage so early on just by sheer luck. Though there are a few quick house rules that I can think of to address this. 1, make the stumble cards be untrashable, or 2, remove everything that allows you to trash another card from the game. So this would include cards and tokens. Option 1 is really easy, but option 2 is preferable if you just want to be rid of trashing altogether. And with that, let's now compare Catacombs to the first 3 games, starting with the very first Clank. The biggest difference by far is the fixed dungeon map. The dungeon's complete layout is known from the very start, so there's really no sense of exploration here at all. This is also why the game gets samey really quick, as they only give you 2 fixed maps. Also, each minor secret space only holds 2 secrets, so there might be a bit more of a last player disadvantage on higher player counts. The major secrets on the other hand has their own spaces, and you can obtain them just by entering their space like minor secrets, so no lockpicks required. In fact, instead of having one-use lockpicks, you now have this master key from the market that unlocks everything permanently, though there are no room extensions or prisoners to unlock. The key only allows you to take quicker or safer pathways, which can be pretty important when a player is out or dead in this version. Unlike Catacombs, when a player is gone, you only have 4 more turns before the game ends. This actually spawned a problematic strategy where people would often grab the cheapest artifact and run straight out. While the strat was known to not be very winnable, it still forces the game to end way too fast and no one's having fun. Finally, the game does not have fast travel options like the portals or the white cubes that attacks everyone. Also, the deck building mechanic is basically identical, down to the same swinginess issue from the trashing mechanic and its own overpowered cards. Overall, it's an objectively worse version of Catacombs in every single way. Seriously, just get Catacombs instead. Up next, we have Clank in Space. The fixed map dungeon returns in this version, but there are these modular parts of the map that you can change around between games. They have also eliminated the rush in rush out strategy from the first game with the following changes. 1. Before you can enter this area with the artifacts, you must first get rid of the 2 data cubes that you start with in this version. This is done by going to these rooms with data ports and placing your cube on it. Though you need to place each cube on a different hexagon module. This forces everyone to walk around the map a bit more before grabbing the artifacts. And 2, the 4 rounds endgame timer is removed, so the dead or out players will keep drawing 4 cubes during their turn just like Catacombs. So no one will be able to hold the game hostage when they exit really early. These 2 things have removed the rush in rush out problem. Aside from that, the attack all cubes is here though it's red, and there are a few fast travel options available. This hyperlift here lets you move to other hyperlifts in the game. Similarly, the Telepaths lets you teleport to other Telepaths, but you need to buy the pass from the market first to access it. And speaking of the market, you can still get the master key in this game for the exact same function. Some of the cards now also belong to one of these 3 factions, which may activate other cards' bonus effects if you have them both in your hand. This is neither new to deck building games, Case and Point Star Realms, nor it is unique to Clank in Space. A lot of the cards in the Clank series are classified as a companion card. At the same time, a lot of other cards also have effects that will only activate when you have a companion, which are basically the same thing. Otherwise, the deck building is mostly identical with the same problems I talked about. Overall, Space Clank is at least better than the first one, but I still like Catacombs more for the exploration mechanic. People say that this is the more strategic Clank, but I don't know how significant being strategic is in the sea of randomness that still persists. Also, the changes to the cards are not very memorable because it just felt like more randomness on top of randomness. Clank in Space may have fixed a glaring issue from the first game, but ultimately still pales in comparison to Catacombs. Last but not least, we have Clank Legacy. Legacy games, for those who don't know, is a type of board game that is designed to be changed permanently over the course of a campaign. The most common way to alter the components is to apply stickers on it like so. In Clank Legacy, there are 10 scenarios to be played on this double-sided board. I can't really show you the whole board due to spoilers, and honestly out of shame, because we were degenerates when it comes to naming the towns. Here's an example. Here's how the board would look like at the start of scenario 1. The map starts off incomplete, but you'll get to add more areas to it as you progress. You still get in, get artifact, and get out in the 10 scenarios, but you'll come across additional story nodes depicted by this book symbol with a number. When someone goes onto a spot with a story node, you'll have to then grab this book of secrets and turn to the page with the same numbered section and read it out aloud. The book will tell you a story for reaching that node, and you might receive beneficial stuff right away, or be given several choices with unknown different outcomes, or even get one of these quest cards that any players can fulfill to receive rewards. Sadly, despite the legacy elements and cool mechanics that is exclusive to this game, I cannot recommend this game due to how unfair it can be. Now, I know that me saying Clank is swingy at this point is like beating a dead horse, but Clank Legacy is definitely the worst offender of this. The game does not have a catch-up mechanism and instead rewards the winners with first dibs to some selection of things. To make this worse, some of these selections are blatantly more useful than the others. So if you are ahead, you will always get the better choices. And this kind of benefit will last for the entire campaign. Trust me, I'm not the only one that thinks that there is a potential balance issue. And even with turn orders, if you are the last player in turn order, especially in a 4-player campaign, you won't get a lot of chance to interact with the story nodes since it will usually disappear after the players before you have interacted with it. And lastly, the story itself is kind of forgettable, and I much prefer the narrative from story-focused games like Forgotten Waters or King's Dilemma. So yeah, without even comparing it to Catacombs, I would not recommend Clank Legacy. All in all, Catacombs is definitely the best iteration of Clank to date. However, in the pantheon of deck building games, both Quest of El Dorado and Super Motherlode are still my favorite deck builders. I've made videos covering both games if you wanna check them out, but be warned that those are very early videos, so the editing is a bit rough. In short, these two games do not have Clank's problems and brought something new with their own implementation of the card market. So yeah, hope you enjoyed this video. Check out my channel for more videos like this, and I promise they are usually not this long. And that's it, see ya!